You see them like a photo, follow someone new, put their phone face down, change their tone, pause before answering, or take longer than usual to text back. And suddenly, your body does not just feel jealous. It feels like it found the smoking gun. Your chest tightens, your stomach drops, your mind starts building a case before you even have the full story. One small detail becomes a warning. One delay becomes rejection. One name becomes a threat. One change in energy becomes proof that something is wrong. And the brutal part is this. When you have anxious attachment, jealousy does not feel like jealousy. It feels like truth. It feels like intuition. It feels like your nervous system saying, "See? I knew it. I knew I was about to be replaced. I knew I was not safe. I knew this connection could disappear." That is why jealousy can be so hard to challenge, because it does not arrive quietly. It arrives with force. It arrives with evidence-looking feelings. It arrives like a lawyer inside your head, collecting details, arranging them into a story, and trying to convict the person before reality has even spoken. But this is where you have to slow down, because pain is not always proof. A trigger is not always evidence. A tight chest is not always intuition. Sometimes jealousy is pointing to something real. Sometimes it is responding to inconsistency, secrecy, triangulation, avoidance, flirting, or a pattern that has already hurt you. But sometimes jealousy is an echo. Sometimes your body is not detecting danger in the present. It is remembering danger from the past. Sometimes your nervous system is not saying, "This is happening." It is saying, "This feels like when it happened before." And if you do not know the difference between evidence and echo, your fear can become the judge, your pain can become the proof, and your relationship can become a courtroom where your nervous system is always trying to win a case just so it can finally feel safe. If this kind of clarity helps your nervous system settle, subscribe. PsychBond is a daily decoder for psychology, relationships, and avoidant and anxious attachment patterns, so you stop guessing. Jealousy feels like proof because anxious attachment is not only reacting to the present moment, it is reacting to the possibility of abandonment. That means the body is not just asking, did they like a photo? Did they follow someone? Did they seem distant? Did they take longer to respond? The body is asking a much bigger question underneath all of that. Am I about to lose my place? Am I about to be replaced? Am I about to become less important? Am I seeing the beginning of the end? That is why the reaction can feel so intense. The detail may be small, but the meaning your nervous system attaches to it is massive. A late reply becomes, "I am not a priority." A friendly comment becomes, "They want someone else." A quiet mood becomes, "They are pulling away." A new person becomes, "I am not enough." And once the anxious brain attaches meaning to a detail, it starts looking for more. This is the proof loop. The anxious brain becomes a biological lawyer. It does not want to feel uncertain, so it starts building a case. It remembers the time they were distant last week. It replays the tone of their last message. It checks the order of who viewed what. It compares response times. It studies punctuation. It looks for changes in warmth. It brings in every old wound as a witness. And suddenly, jealousy does not feel like an emotion anymore. It feels like investigation. It feels like protection. It feels like, if I can just find the truth, I can stop being blindsided. This is why jealousy can feel safer than uncertainty. Uncertainty makes the anxious nervous system feel powerless. Jealousy at least gives the body something to hold: a theory, a suspect, a reason, a direction. Even if the theory hurts, it can feel better than not knowing. That is the trap. Sometimes the anxious system would rather believe a painful story than sit in the emptiness of not being sure. Because certainty, even painful certainty, feels more controllable than ambiguity. If you can prove they are pulling away, then at least the alarm makes sense. If you can prove they want someone else, then at least your panic has a target. If you can prove you are being replaced, then at least you do not feel crazy for hurting. But jealousy is not proof just because it gives your pain a storyline. That is the difference this video is here to teach. Sometimes jealousy is evidence. Sometimes jealousy is an echo. Evidence is what is actually happening now. Echo is what your nervous system remembers from before. Evidence is observable, repeated, and connected to present behavior. Echo is familiar, painful, and often bigger than the moment in front of you. Evidence says, there is a pattern here that needs to be addressed. Echo says, this feels like the old wound, so my body is preparing for the old ending. Evidence can be discussed with facts. Echo often arrives with urgency, shame, panic, and certainty before facts are clear. And both can feel real, because both are real in different ways. Evidence is real information. Echo is real activation. The mistake is treating activation as information without checking the difference. An echo can come from being cheated on before. It can come from being compared. It can come from being discarded without warning. It can come from growing up with love that disappeared, shifted, withdrew, punished, or became inconsistent. It can come from past relationships where your gut was right, but nobody believed you until the damage was already done. So now your body says, never again. Now your body tries to catch the danger early. Now your body wants to read every signal before abandonment can surprise you. That makes sense. It is protective. But protection can become prison when every small uncertainty becomes a threat. Your nervous system may be trying to save you from pain by scanning for proof, but constant scanning keeps you living inside pain before anything has even happened. That is why jealousy becomes exhausting. You are not only dealing with one feeling, you are dealing with a whole internal legal system. Your body files a complaint. Your mind gathers evidence. Your memory brings past cases. Your fear writes the argument. Your attachment wound demands a verdict. And the verdict is usually, I am not safe. But if the trial is happening mostly inside your nervous system, you have to pause before treating the verdict as reality. This does not mean you dismiss yourself. It does not mean you gaslight yourself. It does not mean you say, I am just anxious, so nothing is wrong. That is not the goal. The goal is not to shame your jealousy. The goal is to separate the signal from the story. The signal may be, I feel threatened. I feel insecure. I need clarity. I noticed a shift. I need to look at this pattern. The story may be, they are replacing me. I am not enough. I am about to be abandoned. Everyone leaves. I knew I would be second choice. The signal deserves attention. The story needs examination. This is where anxious attachment has to become more precise, not softer, more precise. Because vague jealousy will pull you into monitoring. Precise awareness will help you evaluate. Monitoring says, I need to keep watching until I find proof. Evaluation says, I need to regulate first, then look at the pattern clearly. Monitoring makes you search for pain. Evaluation helps you identify reality. Monitoring keeps your nervous system dependent on external signs. Evaluation brings you back into your adult self. The first step is asking, what exactly happened? Not, what did it mean? Not, what could it mean? Not, what did my fear say it means? What actually happened? They liked a photo. They took 4 hours to respond. They were quieter than usual. They mentioned someone. They avoided answering a question. They have been inconsistent for 3 weeks. They hide their phone. They flirt in front of you. They disappear after intimacy. These are not all the same. Your nervous system may react strongly to all of them, but they do not carry the same level of evidence. A liked photo is not the same as a pattern of secrecy. A delayed text is not the same as repeated emotional withdrawal. A friendly interaction is not the same as boundary crossing. A private feeling of threat is not the same as real betrayal. When you put every trigger in the same category, you lose the ability to protect yourself wisely. Everything becomes danger. Everything becomes proof. Everything becomes a reason to panic. And then even real evidence becomes harder to handle because your system is already exhausted from false trials. Evidence has weight. Echo has volume. That is one of the most important distinctions. Evidence usually becomes clearer when you slow down. Echo usually gets louder when you spiral. Evidence can survive calm examination. Echo often depends on urgency. Evidence says, look at the pattern across time. Echo says, solve this right now or you will not survive. Evidence can be named without destroying your dignity. Echo often makes you chase, accuse, check, compare, or abandon yourself to get relief. So when jealousy comes up, do not ask first, is this true? Ask first, am I regulated enough to tell? Because an activated nervous system is not a neutral investigator. It is trying to protect you from an ending it already fears. This is why jealous thoughts can feel so convincing at night. The nervous system is tired. The body has fewer resources. Silence gets louder. Imagination gets sharper. The phone becomes a stage where your fears perform. You see a detail, and your mind starts connecting dots that may not belong together. This is how jealousy becomes a case file. They were online but did not answer. They followed that person. They sounded different. They said they were busy. They did not use the same emoji. They did not reassure me the same way. Maybe they are losing interest. Maybe they are choosing someone else. Maybe I was stupid to trust them. Maybe this was always going to happen. Notice how quickly the mind moves from one detail to a full abandonment story. That is not because you are crazy. It is because anxious attachment is meaning-hungry. It does not just want information. It wants certainty. It wants to know where it stands. It wants to know if the bond is safe. And if the relationship does not provide enough consistency, your brain will try to manufacture certainty through interpretation. This is especially true when you are dealing with someone avoidant, inconsistent, vague, or emotionally unavailable. Because sometimes your jealousy is not only an echo. Sometimes it is a response to real relational instability. If someone gives you mixed signals, hides parts of their life, avoids clarity, keeps options open, flirts for validation, disappears after closeness, or makes you feel replaceable. Your nervous system is not inventing the whole problem. It is reacting to a structure that lacks safety. This is why the evidence versus echo framework has to be honest. We are not using it to blame the anxious person for everything. We are using it to create accuracy. Sometimes jealousy is an old wound. Sometimes jealousy is a current warning. Sometimes it is both. Maybe your past wound makes the alarm louder, but the present pattern still has a real issue inside it. Maybe your reaction is intense, but the inconsistency is also real. Maybe your fear is old, but their secrecy is current. Maybe your body is overfiring, but the relationship is still under-providing safety. This is why you cannot heal anxious jealousy only by telling yourself to calm down. You also have to look at whether the relationship itself is calm enough to live inside. If the other person repeatedly creates ambiguity, jealousy will keep finding fuel. If they avoid repair, jealousy will keep returning. If they treat your need for clarity as pressure, jealousy will become louder because the body is trying to get a signal from a person who keeps refusing to be clear. So the question is not only, am I triggered? The question is, what am I triggered by? Is it a present pattern or an old echo? Is there actual inconsistency here, or am I reacting to the possibility of inconsistency? Is this person behaving in ways that would make a secure person uneasy too? Or is my system responding to a neutral moment as if it is danger? That is the filter. Evidence is behavior that would matter even if you were calm. Echo is pain that may still be loud even when the present behavior is neutral. Evidence is repeated avoidance, secrecy, dishonesty, boundary crossing, emotional triangulation, or refusal to repair. Echo is the panic that says, "This feels familiar, so it must be happening again." Evidence asks for a conversation, a boundary, or a decision. Echo asks for regulation, compassion, and reality checking. And when evidence and echo are both present, you need both self-soothing and self-respect. You regulate your body and you address the pattern. You do not use regulation to tolerate disrespect. And you do not use jealousy to attack before you understand the facts. That is the balance. The most painful part of anxious jealousy is that sometimes you secretly want it to be proof. Not because you want to suffer, because uncertainty is unbearable. If the jealousy is proof, then at least you can stop wondering. At least you can say, "I knew it." At least the pain has a reason. At least your body was not wrong. At least you are not crazy. This is the cost of validation. Sometimes the anxious system would rather find betrayal than keep sitting in ambiguity. It would rather be right and devastated than unsure and activated. That is why you may keep checking even when checking hurts. You are not only looking for betrayal. You are looking for relief from not knowing. You are looking for the final piece that will let your body stop scanning. But checking rarely gives lasting safety. It gives hits. A hit of panic, a hit of relief, a hit of proof, a hit of shame. You check, you find nothing, you calm down for a moment, then the doubt returns. Or you check, you find something unclear, and now the loop gets stronger. Monitoring becomes the behavior your nervous system trusts more than communication, more than self-regulation, more than boundaries, more than your own adult judgment. and that is where jealousy starts running your life. You do not feel safer. You feel more dependent on finding the next clue. You start asking the wrong questions. Who did they follow? Who liked their post? Why did they say it that way? Did their tone change? Did they respond faster to someone else? Did they mean something by that? Sometimes those details matter. But if you are living inside constant monitoring, the bigger question gets lost. Is this relationship actually giving me enough safety, clarity, consistency, and respect to stay emotionally well? Because if the relationship requires you to become a detective in order to feel safe, that is already information. A secure bond does not require constant investigation. A healthy partner does not make your nervous system live on crumbs of proof. A stable connection does not force you to choose between ignoring your instincts and spiraling into surveillance. You deserve a relationship where you can ask, repair, clarify, and be met with enough steadiness that jealousy does not have to become your only warning system. This does not mean jealousy disappears in healthy love. Jealousy can happen anywhere. But in healthier dynamics, jealousy can be talked through. It does not have to become a secret investigation. It does not have to become a courtroom. It does not have to become a survival strategy. The reset is this: regulate first, then evaluate. That sounds simple, but it is not easy when your body wants certainty right now. Regulation means you do not let the first wave of activation become the final truth. You pause. You breathe. You get out of the screen. You stop feeding the case for a moment. You ask your body, what am I afraid is happening? Then you ask your adult self, what do I actually know? What is the evidence? What is the echo? What is the pattern? What is the story my body is adding? This is not about dismissing your fear. It is about not letting fear drive without supervision. A good question is, what would I think if I felt secure right now? Not because secure people never feel jealousy, but because security slows down the leap from feeling to fact. Another question is, has this person given me repeated reasons to distrust them, or is this moment painful because it touches an old wound? Another one, am I looking for clarity, or am I looking for a pain hit? That question is uncomfortable, but it matters. Sometimes checking becomes a way to keep the wound open because the wound feels like connection. If you are monitoring them, you still feel attached to them. If you are building a case, you still feel engaged. If you are trying to prove danger, you do not have to feel the helplessness underneath. But monitoring is not connection. Surveillance is not safety. A case file is not intimacy. If you want real safety, you have to come out of the proof loop and back into the body. You cannot think your way into security while your nervous system is on trial. You need regulation, and then you need reality. Reality may say, this was an echo. I was triggered by a neutral moment because it reminded me of being replaced before. Reality may say, this is evidence. There is a pattern of secrecy, avoidance, or disrespect, and I need to address it. Reality may say, this is both. My reaction is bigger because of my past, but their behavior is also not okay. That last one is common, and it is why healing requires nuance. You do not have to make yourself the problem to be accountable for your reactions. And you do not have to make the other person evil to admit their behavior lacks safety. You can say, "My jealousy is intense and I need to regulate it." You can also say, "This relationship has too much ambiguity and I need clarity." You can say, "My fear is old and this pattern is current." You can say, "I do not want to accuse, but I also do not want to abandon myself." That is maturity. Not pretending you do not feel jealous, not letting jealousy control everything, but learning to listen to it without worshiping it. Because jealousy is not always wrong, but it is also not always wise. It is a signal, not a sentence. It can point you towards something that needs care, but it should not be the only voice in the room. The final part of this breakdown is understanding what jealousy often protects. Under jealousy, there is usually fear. Under fear, there is often grief. Under grief, there is usually a younger part of you saying, "Please do not make me go through that again. Please do not let me be the last to know. Please do not let me be replaced while I am still trusting. Please do not let me attach to someone who is already leaving." That part of you deserves compassion, but it also deserves leadership. You do not heal that part by letting it interrogate every detail forever. You heal it by becoming someone who can protect you without panicking you. Someone who can notice evidence without inventing certainty. Someone who can feel an echo without obeying it. Someone who can say, "I will not ignore my body, but I will not let my wound become my only source of truth." This is where anxious attachment begins to change. Not when jealousy never appears, but when jealousy no longer gets to become proof without being checked. When pain no longer gets to write the whole story. When your nervous system can say, "I am scared," and your adult self can answer, "I hear you, but we are going to look clearly. We are not going to accuse from panic. We are not going to abandon ourselves for peace. We are not going to monitor our way into safety. We are going to regulate first, then evaluate the facts. And if the facts show a pattern that is unsafe, we will respond with boundaries, not surveillance." That is the difference. Surveillance keeps you trapped in their behavior. Boundaries return you to your own life. Surveillance says, "I have to keep watching so I do not get hurt." Boundaries say, "I know what I will and will not stay available for." Surveillance says, "Their next move decides my nervous system." Boundaries say, "My standards decide my access." And that is the shift from jealousy as proof to jealousy as information. You do not have to be ashamed of feeling jealous, but you also do not have to let jealousy become your religion. You can feel it, name it, regulate it, examine it, and then decide what reality is asking from you. If it is echo, soothe the wound. If it is evidence, address the pattern. If it is both, do both. But do not let pain alone become the proof. The final truth is this. Jealousy feels like proof in anxious attachment because the body is trying to protect you from being blindsided. It wants certainty. It wants warning. It wants control. It wants to catch abandonment before abandonment catches you. But your body can be loud and still need guidance. Your fear can be real and still not be factual. Your jealousy can be meaningful and still not be the whole truth. Sometimes jealousy is evidence. Sometimes jealousy is an echo. And the work is learning which one is speaking before you let it decide what you do next. You are not crazy for feeling jealous. You are not weak because your body scans for danger. You are not dramatic because uncertainty hurts. But you deserve more than a life built around monitoring. You deserve enough steadiness that your nervous system does not have to turn every small detail into a trial. Jealousy may feel like truth, but truth can survive being checked calmly. If it is real, regulation will not erase it. If it is an echo, regulation will help you hear the old wound underneath. Either way, you come back to yourself. That is the goal. Not to never feel jealousy again. To stop letting jealousy become proof before reality has spoken. If this helped your body feel a little safer, liking this video helps it reach someone else who needs this clarity. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.